For 120 days there has been a war in Ukraine. In this part with Lyndon I have decided to discuss of how can you cope during this crisis. I hope that this part will help you and this war will end soon and we will win soon. So Slava Ukraini, enjoy. How do I return the sense of control and cope with all emotions that might occur?
Sure. And when you say control,
I would say that.
What do you mean by control?
I would say that like by all those air sirens and horrible things that are happening in Ukraine right now, they kind of taken the control out of you, and you do not have control under those things that are happening.
So would you say, are you talking about yourself in particular, or
about
Okay.
not me in particular, but like all the people that are experiencing all of this.
The question really is about two things, control and about safety. Unfortunately, or fortunately, you can only control yourself in a physical sense, in an emotional sense. But how do you control yourself when your body is afraid? You know, you're hearing sirens. Sirens are attached to danger. You're hearing bombs explode. You're hearing shells, firing of machine guns, field artillery. You are experiencing the sounds that they make not only when they hit targets, but you also are hearing the echoes from far away. So you are continually surrounded by a world of noise, where in essence you would rather just cover your ears and not have to have those sensory experiences. So you're internalizing fear to begin with. You need to let it go. You need to find a healthy way to let it go. Now, something which I've seen, which I thought was quite remarkable in Ukraine, was the Ukrainian people singing and dancing, maybe as a sign of defiance, but sometimes you do need to have that righteous indignation. They were doing it together, in community, with each other, that they weren't alone. I think the first step is not to isolate yourself. I think it's important to be connected to each other. And whether or not it's to sing silly little songs from when you were kids, but you need to transcend the moment. You need to find a way to connect with each other lovingly, to show compassion to each other. I think it's important to be with the other person, even if it's to hold their hand, to hug them. These very simple things, very key. A sense of safety and security. And I mean in a real genuine human sense. I don't mean in a, let's just take this into another place. And I mean sexual, because human beings today have forgotten, what it means just to give a hug. Just to hug, nothing weird about that. To show each other, embrace each other with compassion. Quite often though, the problem is that at night time when we're alone, on our own, we play back the events of what's happened. We become scared. There is no way out. I think one thing to do is to take action as well, to see if you can volunteer to help. Whether that's making food for people who need it, or finding them clothes or warmth or comfort, finding those who need help. be a helper, be someone who's going to be there not just for now, but for the future, that's going to require everyone to pull together to reform the culture and the society, and to do it where you are as much as possible. Don't make things worse. And you will give the victory to your opponent by becoming like them. So once you become like the enemy, they have won the war without even firing a shot at you. And I think it's difficult though, because I'm not advocating pacifism here, because what if there was a young man that once just come of age, and he believes that he is genuinely and sincerely scared of what will happen to his country, that there are invaders, and he wants to join the military and in effect take lives to save lives. If he feels that's the right thing to do, or she, because I've seen ladies in the Ukrainian military, a sergeant, she was on TV, or I saw on YouTube. Everyone can perform a role to help each other. Small acts of kindness. I think it has to start with that, because one of the most important and key ingredients in any kind of healing is to give to others, to love them. And it's very difficult to find love when there's a sea of hate around you. I think that's really important. Making the contribution that you can with what you have and when you have it. I think you're a great example of that, to be honest with you. Having known you now for a few months, your care and love for your country, for other people who suffer too, your willingness to, even though you're far away, make contribution. Doing what you're doing now is an act of love and care for them. I think that's wonderful, and that's why I agreed to talk to you, because I know you're doing it for good reason. I think that's something, as an example. You know, I don't want to quote John F. Kennedy, who said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." So maybe look at what you can do for those who need your help. And little things, you don't need to be doing big things. If you've got a little bit of food, or just human kindness right now, it's kindness that's missing. If you're not a combatant, you know, if you're not a soldier in the actual military, you know, you can support them too, you know. I'm sure lots of people are doing little things, but, you know, send them letters, or find out, for those parents and brothers and sisters that have lost family, you can become their family now. You can love them for the sacrifices that their children may have made for your freedom and liberation. Because it's a war, I don't want to use the word war, it's a war of liberation. You know, and also this, it's interesting you say, for me, in a way, this war didn't start now. This war started with the original invasion. This is a continuation of something that got started not by provocation. It wasn't like people of Ukraine were sitting on the border flipping the bird, you know. This is a resistance against colonization, you know. And that's a political statement, obviously, that I'm making. But defending your homeland, you know. And against incredible odds. There's something else I will say, and this is something I found was remarkable with Ukrainian people, the spirit that they have. That they, against the odds, you know, against the odds, they are defiant in the face of overwhelming power. And their courage, the courage of the Ukrainian people has inspired other people to help them. So, you know what? In short, be the better people. Show the world how powerful and how good people can be in the face of nastiness. Rise up and show us all, because our world needs hope. Not just for you guys, but you guys can show everyone else. Maybe, just maybe, if we pull together, we can do something great. And I think that's really, that is the real strength of Ukraine. The real strength. No one knew the heart of Ukraine until someone attacked it. Sad, yes. But it's not for no reason that people from all over the world want to help. Because guess what? Ukrainians are helping themselves. So continue doing that.
In your opinion, how many people will be diagnosed with PTSD after it will all end?
I think.
And how many of them do you think will be able to fully recover after it?
Like we talked originally about soldiers. Of course, I think a lot of soldiers are going to come back traumatized. My worry for them would be that to calm themselves, they will turn to alcohol. The normal, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Unfortunately, this is kind of a truism. To work out their stress, perhaps violence. I don't know the conditions, societal conditions before the conflict, but I think unfortunately for a lot of people it amplifies pre-existing problems that were there already. There's a danger of that manifesting itself in other ways. It would be unusual to say that if the whole country has been traumatized and there's going to be need for national healing. So every Ukrainian, in a way, I think, will have PTSD in their own, to a degree. And some of them will have more, the actual CPTSD. How is it going to play out? I hope it doesn't play out. You know, I'm going to switch over to what Zizek says about the day after the victory. What comes next? You know, it's important for Ukraine to have a vision about who they want to become now. What is it going to mean to be Ukrainian? We've stood up to these oppressors. I hope that they win. And what is a win? A win is stopping the killing on both sides. You know, that there's reconciliation. Also internally, you know, because the people have been divided, as for sure, in certain regions. Some people will never be Ukrainians as such again. They will be the one country living in your country. That's going to cause its own problems, but you can't worry about that too much, you know, as long as it doesn't create separatists and other crazy maniacs. Because of the savage nature of this particular war, and it's been fought quite, you know, as I just said, savagely. You know, modern warfare is now being fought in cities. And it's not set pieces on a field where everyone lines up and you shoot and they shoot, and, you know, it's fought in homes, home to home, you know, neighborhood to neighborhood. You're going to have to rebuild those neighborhoods, you know, the little park where, I was going to say Misha and his buddies hang out on the swings, or the skate park where some other guy, Anatol, and his pals do their thing, or where the girls go hang out, You know, all these places are going to need to be rebuilt with a new sense of not just pride, but also you're also going to need to remember your dead and mourn them. There's a time of mourning, a grief time as well. And, you know, knowing a little bit about the history of the Ukraine, you guys haven't had it easy, you know. You've had it quite tough. And I think now, if there ever was a time to find a new soul, a new heart, and a new future, this should be the conclusion of all the difficult things that have come before, in that you have the opportunity to form a new world for yourselves. This is you must find in the difficulty the blessing. And this is the meaning of this war. It's not just about a certain, it's not ideological, it's not about like land, it's also about one culture trying to dominate another so that your culture can at least stand on its own 2 feet. Not that it didn't before, but now as its own identity, instead of a halfway between occupying forces, which, let's look at history in a way it was, whether it was Poland, whether it was Germany, whether it was Russia. Okay, I've named them, you know, your own sense of self. You are, as we can see now, and maybe the world didn't realize this, and maybe Ukraine didn't realize this, important. And maybe like it can help others to also see how important they can be by standing up for to do what's right. To sort of like, I don't want to use the word celebrate your cultural identity, but the great strengths. The thing is that from my limited knowledge, there needs going to need to be support for people to work through their suffering, you know, whether it's the soldiers returning from the front lines or the elderly who have been traumatized, whether the young, everyone. There needs to be a kind of a rebirth in a way of the spirit. It needs to be supported. I think everyone is suffering right now. You know, it's not just that, but you know, because of the intensity of the media, I see it actually that there are people who don't even live in the Ukraine who are being traumatized by this.
Yeah.
You know, we are so overexposed to the darkness.
So what can you advise to like not traumatize yourself even worse, like by this news, by...
I think for a lot of people these days, get off. I know it says it all the time, get off. No, I think, listen, it would be difficult to not want to look at the news. You know,
course.
Your family are in danger, you know, maybe there's an attack.
Yeah, even for me, like the first, I don't know, 1 month, I was all over the news, like checking if there is a rocket hit to somewhere nearby my house, or is something bad is happening. But like over time, I like decided to decrease this kind of exposure. I'm of course checking the news and from time to time seeing some Instagram stories that either way Ukrainians post. But yeah.
I think that's actually very wise. Try, you know, it's like if you tell someone don't do something, they're more like, oh really, I'll do it anyway. I think it's really important to talk about the future. What are we going to do in spite of what's going on? You know, what's the kind of country we want to make? what are the kind of lives we want to live, what are the values that we want to reinforce. But in terms of coping, honestly, I think the best thing we can always do is just, and it's not to ignore what's going on, but limit your focus to, not having to explore every single little avenue that you can go out. The internet, unfortunately, in a way, is like this huge tunnel network of information and disinformation. We're being fed the war in real time, we get like videos of drones and this and that, and and we get propaganda also on both sides. It's a war of information as much as anything else. Try and limit that as much as you can. This is the advice everyone will give, and I'm afraid I can't say much more than really to that to a degree. But I think actually, see what you can do to help. Most importantly, see how you can do something rather than sit there and just suffer in silence. I think community is really important that way. It's a very tough question to answer.
It is.
I think, I'm thinking to myself, like when COVID first broke out, like I was genuinely concerned, And I thought to myself, sorry, I apologise. It's not you, it's me. I get tired of myself. There was so much information being thrown at, so much uncertainty. You didn't know what was going to happen. I've never experienced a pandemic in my life. And just watching this kind of like wildfire go around the world, and everything locked down and fear, is it going to kill me? Is it going to kill this, that, We automatically go into that worry phase, and eventually the government's trying to calm us down, and people are arguing and whatnot. So, anyway, those people. So, I think that see who you can help. Try and get off of looking at too much. It's hard not to do it. I told myself as well. Limit. It's almost like it's kind of like, as I said, like watching a car crash. You don't press rewind all the time. You are literally inflicting suffering on yourself. It's not healthy. Try and just find a constructive way to work with it. I would say.
So if I see somebody suffering mentally, can I help him or her in some way from the events?
I think the best thing you can do, as I said to you before, is to be with them. Like just be present. Being present with someone, you give them, they don't feel alone in their suffering. They don't feel isolated or abandoned. It's when people are left alone, when they feel insecure, that they start to, we'll call it dark thoughts, but they start to work on themselves. I think it's important not to leave people alone. Unless they want to process things alone. At least they know there's someone out there who will listen. I think it's important again to try and start focusing on the sort of future that you want to build. Because the past we can't change. There's going to be obviously a time for reckoning, you know. Unfortunately, at the end of World War II, like, let's look at what happened in France. You know, the Vichy government. They were collaborators. They must be collaborators as well now. They always have been. They will be punished and mocked, and, you know, unfortunately, there are a lot of things. Let's see if we can learn from the past so as to not repeat them. The reason why I mention that is that forgiveness is that they're going to be at the core of what comes next as well. Forgiveness, really. You're going to, it sounds really silly, but in a way it could be silly, but, you know, people are going to have to forgive the enemy, or else that hate that they take is going to just create problems elsewhere. I don't like what you did. I'm holding you accountable for that. But I'm responsible for the life I'm going to build now. So you park the accountability where it should be, but you take the responsibility of saying, okay, I survived, I'm still here, I can still live a good life. And now, even with the suffering that I've just experienced, how do I either not make someone else's life worse, or how do I, you know, you have to live outside of yourself. That's the key to being a human being. We're individuals who need to only discover our individuality by helping others. In essence, you can't be a doctor unless you got patients.
Yeah.
You know, I can't be a therapist unless there are people that I can work with. There's a symbiotic relationship in all things, you know. There can't be a left without a right. So, in essence, it's about trying to find a way to redefine the future, you know. And it's something that's quite missing today in general in a lot of the world. In a way, Ukraine has been pressed on pause. It's become like this isolated zone. Of course, it's containing this terrible conflict for the Ukrainian people. It's not, you know, I can empathize, but I'm not from there. I don't speak the language. I don't understand the culture. I don't have any, you know, really close ties to it, but I have been in a situation, similar situations, not like this. I can empathize, and just my heart goes out to the people. And if I was, in a way, when I talk about Ukraine, I think about my own home country. If we could have been nicer to each other after the conflict we went through, things would have been better. I think so. And forgiveness is huge, really. Forgiveness, trying to find a way to forgive.
Yeah, I will attach some links where you can help here in Prague, for example, and some resources where you can seek help if you are struggling. So yeah, I would like to end this podcast by few last questions. So
I do not know where all this is.
yeah, so how can I advise a friend to seek help if I see them struggling? How can I don't know, politely tell or sit with them and talk of what stops them from seeking help?
I think a huge problem, well, I think a problem, let's not call it huge, or else we make it huge. The problem is that people don't often understand what the benefits are to getting help. And most of the time, most people only seek help when they're in a crisis. So this, should we say, kind of like preventative, we'll call it care, so you don't need to end up kind of like critical care, steps to take for your own sense of mental fitness, I call it, well-being. But if you are in a situation where it's normally the walls have closed in, things are shutting down, it's hard to ask for help. A lot of people don't know how to ask for help. So I think a good place to always start, like most people these days, I'll go to YouTube, find, I'd say it's dangerous though, because there are a lot of people on YouTube that I think are selling the drama. You know, it's sad, to be very honest with you. I don't want to name names, but I see it and I'm amazed. They produce daily content, particularly those focusing on narcissism. There are loads of them, because it's like the disease of the age. How would I advise someone? I think it starts out with talking to friends if you've got them, but you just made me think of anything. Some people just don't know how to verbalize it. Listen, there's probably pre-canned answers that some people would say. Go seek out your mental health professional, call a helpline. In fact, actually, I think that could be a good idea. If you're feeling really bad, see if there's a local number you can call, talk to people. That's the whole thing. Start the conversation. You need to start letting it go.
So, for example, if I see a friend struggling, I can advise some local phone number with, I don't know, crisis line or something.
You know what, Dan? Sometimes some help is better than none. I'm thinking carefully because I don't want to give people what I think is kind of poor advice, which will hurt them. You know, again, I'm thinking of the first rule, do no harm. I think in this time, particularly for this particular conflict, I would go look up things I would go and see if the Red Cross is any help. I'd look for NGOs who are looking to provide support. Doctors Without Borders. I would look, there are some resources online which I've seen, which provide a lot of excellent links to things like, you know, like we need, in terms of like basics, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, do you have food, safe place to stay, you know. It just depends on what the problem is. Like if your friend has got like homeless and got these other problems going on, you know, somewhere safe to stay, regular food, housing, blah, blah, blah. But I think you're kind of more mentioning like a friend who may be like at university or living in the countryside or living anywhere and they just don't know what to do. There's no one resource that I know of per se. I would just say actually look for community. I would start with community. I would always look to see if there's something available. It doesn't have to be therapy as such, but if it's like a community group, you know, people can come together and share, you know. Even if you have to start it yourself, bring other people together, whether it's to have you don't even call it a group, just a meeting at your house.
Yeah,
Support,
some dinner.
Create your own support group, a dinner, you know, laugh and cry, both of them, maybe not at the same time. Find a way to help each other. Go and find one other person to talk to. If you're in that situation, you're alone and you don't have someone else, that professional, there's nothing better than having someone there to hold your hand or, talk to you or just be with you. That's what I would say. If you can't have access to that, we've been doing this for a very long time as human beings. We need each other. So don't be alone. Do not isolate yourself. That's the first step. I'd say don't isolate yourself. Go out there. If you do need to seek professional help and you can't afford it, then, that's the other thing I was thinking about, like, can people afford it? Affordable mental health care is not always accessible. So I'll even go so far to say, if you can speak English, you can reach out and talk to me. Because that would be my contribution towards helping your people. Because you're a great guy. You're a wonderful representative of the Ukraine. He really is. You guys are lucky that he cares so much about you. So yeah, you make me, someone like me, think, what am I doing? And I thought, not enough. So yeah, that's the power of humanity, man.
So the last question, what...
You're not getting my PIN number. It's the last time I say no. What's up?
So what advice can you give somebody struggling?
Don't make it worse. There's different kinds of struggling in life. They're struggling for the wrong reasons, and they're struggling for the right reasons. And if you're struggling to find or re-find yourself, then that's a good struggle. But if you are struggling to destroy yourself for other people, that's not the way. If you are hurting yourself, you don't know how to care for yourself. And I think it's really important, particularly in difficult situations, to care for yourself in little ways if you can't do big things. I think if you can't look after yourself, you can't, it's a cliche, you can't look after other people. But I'd say that work with what you have, and do it moment to moment. Find the meaning in the moment. If right now is not to do something bad to yourself or someone else, then that's a victory. And just build on the now, little bits of now. Don't get too lost in the future, and don't get dragged too down in the past. Like really being present. Because that's the only place you can be, really, right here and now. You will be there later, hopefully. But use what you can when you have it, and how you have it. Don't get too strung out about the future will happen, for sure. But focus on trying to ground yourself now. There's some techniques I would suggest if you're having panic attack or stress anxiety, some breathing techniques. Learn 5-minute yoga. There are lots of free apps out there. Some mindfulness stuff. I recommend Sam Harris. Don't like everything he says, but his mindfulness app is pretty good. Anything, okay, I'm talking from an English speaking perspective. I don't know how this would work so well with Ukrainian speaking people. If there is a mindfulness app or something like that, to calm your body down, just be in the moment, some breathing exercises, do what you can right now with what you have. And the future is coming, guys, the future is coming. You will get through this, and better times are yet to come. Right now, it's about holding on to each other, holding on to the love you have for your country and each other, and through caring, you know. The only way to beat hate is love, truly, well and truly. And don't despair, you know, because if you despair, you will fall into the darkness, and the darkness is waiting for you. And I don't think you want to give in just yet. You've done a great job of resisting some very terrible things. You've paid a huge price. Your man here is trying to help you out, so I think you should try and help each other out. Just try and love each other, you know. Even if you may have differences, we all have differences. But support each other in little things. Doesn't have to be big, just little things. Do lots of little good things. Try every day to find a reason to do a good thing. Maybe it's a smile. Maybe it's checking up on someone you haven't heard from in a while. But if you can show the world the power of your hearts, well, you've won the war already. You didn't give darkness a chance to destroy the beauty that's in all of you. That's the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Be beautiful, Ukraine. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, so thank you, Lyndon, for coming.
You're welcome, Dan. Did you steal any of my shit? No, I'm joking. Give us some skin. Woo! Guys, this is the future of psychotherapy. It's been an honor and a blessing to sit here with Dan. He's a great guy, so please support his channel. And yeah, look after each other. Okay, God bless you all. Whatever your God is, just make sure it's not drugs.